Welcome to my channel. It's early morning in 1979. You're standing at the counter of your neighborhood store, hearing the familiar clink of loose change rattling in a glass jar, the cashier's voice calling out, 10 cents. Reaching in, you pull out a small silver-colored coin, warm from the drawer. The profile glimmers in the dim light, Franklin D. Roosevelt gazing forward with quiet dignity. You hold it, turn it over, and faintly stamped near the rim is a tiny letter, D. Denver. And that humble 10-cent piece begins a story that, decades later, would captivate collectors and coin enthusiasts around the world. Let's start at the beginning of that story, the legacy behind the man whose face appears on this tiny disc. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, is remembered for steering the nation through two of its greatest crises, the Great Depression and World War II. His New Deal policies reshaped America, and his reassuring fireside chats brought comfort to a nation in turmoil. But tucked away in the small size of everyday pocket change lies a story of remembrance and homage. After Roosevelt's death in April 1945, Congress authorized the coin we know today. The dime had borne the features of Secretary of the Treasury Alexander Hamilton since 1800. In 1946, the new dime debuted, replacing Hamilton's sharp profile with that of FDR. It was a quiet yet powerful message, a tribute to a man who carried the weight of a nation, and a reminder that even the smallest piece of metal can carry great stories. Imagine the staff at the Denver Mint, each coin blank fed into a massive coining press, transformed under tons of pressure into the finished dimes, surface gleaming, details crisp, the D stamped clearly, ready to emerge into commerce. In 1979, the U.S. Mint in Denver produced hundreds of millions of these dimes. They were routine, nearly mundane. Yet today, collectors single out each one as a small artifact of a moment in time. As you wander through the halls of coin collecting, the 1979 D dime might not be the rarest bird. You won't find it fetching tens of thousands like a 1936 D or an ultra-rare proof error. But that's where the charm truly lies. Ordinary coins, everyday circulation pieces, those are the ones that whisper. They travel through back pockets, tip jars, visiting vending machines, sometimes lost, sometimes forgotten, and every now and then, a sharp-eyed collector spots one in change, turning a routine transaction into discovery. Let's step back a moment and think about why that matters. In the world of coin collecting, every curiosity has value. Varieties, errors, die states, they're the spice that turns a stack of pocket change into a treasure hunt. A Type 2 1979 D dime might not have mainstream notoriety, but in specialist circles, those who chase every die variety can be delighted to fill their sets, even if it means paying a bit more. In that niche, finite supply plus demand equals premium. Beyond varieties and condition, some 1979 D dimes have errors, off-center strikes, doubled dies, clipped planchets. Those are even rarer, and while a serious circulation strike off-center error might only shift the coin by a couple millimeters, the visual impact and numismatic value can be significant. A 1979 D with a strong doubling on the date or motto might fetch much more than face value, hundreds, even. Not every coin hits that jackpot, but the possibility thrills. Now, $117 is a remarkable figure. After all, these coins were minted by the hundreds of millions, yet a high-grade specimen, pure and lustrous, can command such a price because of its scarcity in top condition. Buyers at auction or through dealers desire that flawless surface, perfectly preserved until today. When one turns up, it becomes a moment. A high-grade 1979 D is not just money, it's a link to minting technology, to the passage of decades, to the stewardship of collectors who preserved it. And what about the sentimental side? Think about your patrons, the everyday coin handlers who never looked twice. They dropped it in a jar, passed it to a cashier, didn't register the D. But somewhere out there, a collector found it. It sparked curiosity. It drew out details about Roosevelt, about the mint, about minting quality. And that quiet dime, a workhorse of commerce, became a small window onto history, craftsmanship, and the human impulse to collect and preserve. That's the heart of the story. To wrap it up, every dime has a tale. The 1979 D. Roosevelt dime, born in Denver, minted in millions, slipped through countless hands, holds a world in microcosm. Through its design by cynic, its respectful homage to Roosevelt, through the subtle die varieties and rare errors, through condition-driven value and the collector's gaze, it transforms from common currency to coveted keepsake. And at the climax, $117 for that pristine survivor, it reminds us all that even the most ordinary objects may harbor extraordinary value. So in your pocket or your change jar this morning, you might very well hold a dime. Flip it over, look for that D. Treat it not as mere 10 cents, but as part of a decades-long journey. And who knows? Maybe one day, you'll realize you're holding something extraordinary. Today, we're diving deep into the story of one of the most fascinating little coins in American history, a coin so small, so ordinary in your pocket, and yet, it carries a story of war, economics, artistry, and mystery. That's right. We're talking about the 1967 US 1 dime. Now, at face value, it's easy to overlook. It's just 10 cents, right? But as we unravel the layers of this coin, you'll see why collectors have placed immense value on it, sometimes even as high as $111 or more. You'll find out why this dime is more than just spare change. It's a tiny time capsule, a snapshot of a turbulent era, and a collector's silent treasure. So grab your magnifying glass, because we're about to journey through time, into mints, into American history, and into the hands of collectors who see gold where others see silver. Let's start by stepping back in time. The year is 1967. The United States is in the throes of transformation. The Vietnam War is raging overseas, sparking massive protests back home. The Summer of Love brings a cultural revolution. Racial tensions simmer after the Civil Rights Act, and the economy is adjusting to new realities. Amid all of this, something interesting is happening with American coinage. The 1967 Roosevelt dime is part of that first wave of all copper nickel dimes. It bore the same portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, designed by John R. Cynic back in 1946. But this version was slightly different, not in its appearance, but in its production and context. Let's take a closer look at the design. It's a beautiful, balanced design, compact and rich with meaning, but here's where things get even more interesting. Because of the coin shortage in the early 1960s, the U.S. Mint took several unusual steps in 1967. One of those was to suspend the use of mint marks. That's right, there are no mint marks on any 1967 dimes. Whether a coin was minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, it looked exactly the same. Now, let's talk numbers. How many were made? In 1967, the U.S. Mint produced a staggering 2.2 billion dimes. That's billion with a B. Most of them came out of Philadelphia, though we'll never know the exact breakdown due to the lack of mint marks. With so many in circulation, you might be wondering, how can this dime be worth $111? Well, let's talk condition and rarity. The vast majority of these coins were used in everyday transactions. They rattled in pockets, rolled through vending machines, and lived in piggy banks. Finding one in circulated condition today isn't hard. But finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition? That's much rarer. In 1967, just over 1.8 million special mint sets were made. That may sound like a lot, but when you consider how many collectors exist, and how many sets were broken apart over the years, it becomes clear that high-grade specimens are much harder to find today. Error coins from 1967 are particularly fascinating. Because of the massive production and the pressure to push coins out quickly, mistakes happened. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die breaks, and double dies have all been reported on 1967 dimes. These errors are rare and often slip through unnoticed. But for sharp-eyed collectors, they can be gold mines. A 1967 dime with a strong double die on the obverse or reverse can easily fetch well over its face value, even into the hundreds, depending on the severity and visibility of the error, and that's the magic of coin collecting. It's the hunt. The thrill of finding a dime that others have passed over 1,000 times. It's about recognizing rarity in the mundane. The 1967 dime reminds us that even in a coin with billions of siblings, uniqueness can exist. It just takes a careful eye and a bit of knowledge. Now, you might be wondering, how do I know if my 1967 dime is worth anything? First, check its condition. If it looks like it's been through the ringer, scratched, worn down, dull, it's probably only worth its face value. But if it still has a mirror-like shine, sharp edges, and crisp details, it could be uncirculated. If it's from an SMS set, that's even better. Second, look for any errors. Turn the coin under a bright light and examine the lettering and date. Is anything doubled? Is the strike off center? Does the coin seem misshapen or unusually thick? These could all be signs of a valuable error. And third, consider getting it graded. If you truly believe you have a gem on your hands, send it to a professional grading service. Yes, it costs money, but a high grade can transform your dime from a drawer dweller into a display case star. So finally, let's talk about the number you've been waiting for. How much is a 1967 dime really worth today? In circulated condition, most are worth just 10 cents. That's the truth. But in higher grades, MS66, MS67, or SP67 and above from SMS sets, the value jumps dramatically. In fact, an SMS dime in superb condition with deep cameo contrast can fetch upwards of $100. And yes, some have sold for $111 or more at auction. That's over 1,100 times its face value. It's a stunning reminder that value isn't always about what something is, it's about what it represents, how rare it is, and who's looking for it. So next time you're sorting through change or visiting a coin show, don't skip over the dimes. Especially not the ones from 1967. They may not shine like gold, but with the right eye and a little patience,